Today's true scary story has a huge trigger warning. If you can't deal with any type of violence, you probably want to scroll past this video because it has to do with a demon possessing a man in order for him to protect his family. He allows this to happen, and it is insane what he does to this other person. If you guys like my channel and you feel like supporting me, it really helps if you hit that like button, and if you want to see more true scary stories from me, also hit the subscribe button, but only if you like my content. So for today's story's sake, we're going to call this person Jaden. Jaden lives in a different country, but I'm not going to say the country because we are keeping him completely anonymous, and you will find out why. Jaden has an older brother, a younger brother, and a sister. Now, Jaden's younger brother was with him when this happened. Now, Jaden was always a very happy kid. He never let much bother him. That was until 14 years ago, when his parents bought a second house about 20 minutes away from the house that he grew up in. The house was well maintained, but you could tell it was old. It used to be a group home of some sort, but it was turned residential. It was all repainted and fixed up inside, but the old emergency lights were still on the walls, which is kind of creepy. So his parents still owned both houses, and he didn't want to switch schools, so he would actually stay in the old house more often, and his grandmother would live in the new house, and he would go over to the new house on weekends whenever he would feel like it. Now, his parents knew that he had the most stuff, so they let him have the biggest room in the upstairs bedroom above the kitchen. The first few weekends were okay. It felt a little off, but he did just attribute this to it being a new house, so he just brushed it off. But his father went out of town for a few months for work, and this is when everything started to happen. The first weekend after his father was gone, they were all sitting downstairs watching a movie, having some quiet family time. But midnight rolled around, and Jaden decided that he wanted to go to bed, so he did his normal routine. He brushed his teeth, he washed his face, and then he went to bed. Well, in the middle of the night, he woke up to this feeling of being watched. He opened his eyes and he looks towards the corner of the door, and there's this large, tall figure standing in the corner of his doorway. And this figure is so tall that his ceilings were about 6.5 feet tall, and he was literally having to crouch over to stare at him. His eyes on this thing were pale with like this yellow haze, and he was so scared he just put his back against the wall, and he just closed his eyes, and he was just like, this isn't happening, this isn't real, this isn't real, you're imagining it, you're imagining it. The air all of a sudden got cold and heavy, and his entire body tensed up. And he heard this deep groan say, Riley. And then he blacked out and fell asleep. Over the next few weeks, he absolutely refused to stay in that house. He would tell his mother that he was having friends come over for an excuse not to go over to the new house. But he found his smile was becoming less and less frequent, and his mind was going to a very dark place. He wanted to fight over the smallest things. For instance, someone walking past him as he was sitting at his desk and just scratching him with a piece of paper very lightly would make him flip out. His parents suggested that it was just hormonal and hereditary, and they just brushed it off. Well, about a year later, when his father was away at work again for like a couple of months, his brother brought up one of his cousins that he really didn't like. Now, Jaden had some harsh and violent things to say about this cousin, and his mother just looks at him and she's like, Jaden, you need to calm down.